Welcome, I am Aher, a third year game development student, and I'm going to show you how I made this castle in Unreal Engine based on a character that I made before. Her name is Frida of Osbury, where after a war she was rewarded with a land and a castle. This castle is supposed to be hers, and it's called Castle Tunstead. To start, I wanted to challenge myself by creating most of the assets that I'm going to use, mainly for the castle, to test myself as a 3D artist. And the only asset that I'm gonna use is Orasat's stylized landscape biomes. I started by mapping the rough layout of the castle in Photoshop to give me an idea of how it would look like. I then prepped the surrounding landscape before I made the landscape where the castle would stand. The idea is that it's supposed to be a plain biome of some sort where there's barely any trees and it's surrounded by small mountains. I then sculpted the land where the castle would stand itself, while I try my best to follow the guide that I made earlier, until I get a result that I'm happy with. Now to the castle itself. I started by blocking out the structures that I'm going to put based on the guide that I made earlier, using only basic shapes. Originally, I was planning to use modular pieces for the castle, but that proves harder and tedious than expected, so I just decided to create each part instead. For the battlements, I took a screenshot of the top view of the wall and opened it in Photoshop to draw some sort of guideline. Using Blender's array and curve modifier, I was able to create that shape that I wanted. For the buildings, I simply used the pieces that I made to essentially just build while adjusting them and creating new assets if needed. And finally, the materials. I started by using Blender's Smart UV project to create a fairly okay looking UV map. I also separate different parts with different materials to make it easier to work with later. And with those preparation done, I exported my asset to Substance Painter to paint. So I'm fairly new to Substance Painter, so it's still difficult for me to explain what I'm doing here, so I'm just gonna put a time lapse of my work. For the colors, I mainly use white and grays for the walls and windows since those are common colors used in castles back then, and because of how simple it looks when combined together. And I also added some orange and some brown to add a bit of contrast. For my final thoughts, I think I was fairly happy of how it turns out. To be able to create a structure in a game engine is fun, especially since one of my favorite things to do is to create structures in games. But there's still a lot of missing details that I wish I have time to add because of constraint and skill issue, but I did learn what to do and not to do that I could use in my future projects that could potentially help me out. And that's all for the video. And I do hope that you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.